Hello chess players! In this next Practical Endgames lesson we're gonna be looking about connected pass pawns. These are powerful pass pawn type. But first let's look at the homework. Did you solve this? You can pause the video here if you want. White to play. That was this example, and what did you come up with? The right move is h5. Why is that? We are not allowing opponent to create a protected pass pawn, from the previous lesson. If we went b4, very tempting move to create your own protected passer. That would be a big mistake and would throw the win away, because black does this and suddenly he created his own pass pawn. And what is that? Protected passer, and our king is basically now tied to this pawn, to the square of this pawn right here. So we cannot win, we cannot advance the king any further. So h5 was an important move to spot, splitting the pawns and seeing that you can make your own protected passer one move later. So here we go, and the rest is kind of easy, with a trivial win here. King will go and just collect the rest of the pawns. So very important to spot what opponent wants to do. And on the first move, h5 splits the pawns. Okay, so let's now begin our theme of connected pass pawns. So here we see an example of them. They are differing from the protected passer in such a way that there is no enemy pawn in between them, somewhere here or here. They are kind of free to go. They are standing side by side, and also they don't have any opponent pawn on neighboring files. Here we cannot go outside the board, but I think you imagine, if the pawns were in the central files, they won't have any opponent pawns in the neighboring files. So what is special about connectors, connected pass pawns? Well, they are kind of similar to protected passers, but they also defend themselves tactically, I would say. Same thing, without the need of the king. They are self-defending type of pass pawns structure, self-defending structure. So here first move we can even play a5 with white, just advance those connectors, let them roll. King tries to come back, and then we can connect them together again, tactical way. Black cannot take this pawn because the other runs away, so they are always defending each other. King b5, and how does white win? We use these pawns as a kind of distraction and advance on the rest of the black pawns. Here is the final kind of tricky try for black. g5, otherwise we just collect all the pawns, and we take it h4, and here there are a couple ways to win. Maybe white can even sacrifice a pawn to distract the king and go after these guys. Here we see the outside passers, but they are not too far away from each other, so we easily come back into the square. Where is the square of this pawn? It's right here, we're standing on it. So why we played a6? To distract the king. So let's see the main variation of this. We could not even we can not sack the pawn if we want, but e5, and now it's actually important to do the king f3 move. So we see it's even complicated a bit here. If we go directly at the pawn, there might be some tricks with black coming to help this pawn. So that's why we kind of do king f3. We're putting black into some sort of zugzwang, because if they go here now, we can just advance the pawns and h3, and then we collect all these pawns. Yeah, they are not too far away. We're just in time in the square. So bit tricky end, but probably best idea is just to kind of lure the king away with this a6 move, and then go after the rest of the pawns. Of course, you might find other wins, but the main idea, yeah, the connector pass, the protected passers are a big force on their own. They protect each other and distract the king completely. So next example. Here I wanted to show you how connected passers, with the help of the rook, they are kind of steamroller. Yeah, they are unstoppable force. They can advance on their own without the need of the king. Kind of important, probably many of you know this pattern already, but important kind of structure, self-advancing structure in the endgames. So how does it go? Before, this structure is kind of self-defending and advancing. So we connected the pawns, and the next idea will be rook lifting just one row up, and then the pawns will advance again. So this is like a slow rolling, yeah, pawns, but they are kind of unstoppable force unless the black king comes closer. Yeah, if the black king, for example, was kind of behind the pawns, then there is no way to stop them. He has to come in front of them. So black king tries to come closer. If he stays in place, then the structure just goes through. Yeah, a5, a7, b6, and rook b8 next, and promotion. So king d8 tries to come with the king closer, of course, but now we cannot go a7. Yeah, rook will be dropping. So what we do, we just take the pawn, and it's winning anyway. So just wanted to introduce you, yeah, if you didn't know this connectors with the rook together, they are advancing together very decisively. Here we see an example from the game Alekhine-Alexander 1937, and we see that white has connected pass pawns. As I explained, yeah, they are the type of passers which don't have any opponent pawns in between them or on neighboring files. Yeah, they're free to go, they're rolling. So thanks to powerful connectors, white has a huge advantage in the endgame. Yeah, just compare the quality of this against these outside pass pawn. Of course, in the pawn endgame, this would be lost for white, but we are in the rook endgame, yeah, so that makes a big difference. Black also has kind of a dangerous plan, maybe to go here and move the rook behind the pawn. So white plays a good move now, rook a5 to stop that, to stop g5. Rook b6 was played, and the pawns start rolling. Yeah, the further play is kind of automatic, gradual advance of the pawns accompanied by the king. So yeah, the further those pawns go, the more dangerous they become. King f4, rook b4. Okay, what to play now for white? Yeah, think about it and decide on the move. Okay, in the game, white just played d5, simple move. But if you thought about king e5, that would be a huge blunder. It's very easy to mess up even the winning game in chess. Yeah, chess is brutal that way. How can black win? Maybe, yeah. Why is this a blunder? Black can win by exchanging into a pawn endgame like this, and suddenly we know that the outside passers, they are, yeah, if they're further away from each other, they are beating every other pass pawn type. And here white is actually lost because they cannot stop both of them. So yeah, outside passers beat connectors in the pawn endgame. Yeah, so white of course stayed in the rook endgame because of that, and in the rook endgame the connectors will be better, are better. rook b6, rook c5. White is kind of improving the rook. Rook b4. If rook b7, maybe this line, yeah, we are just advancing. Black tries to advance his own pawns, but we are just too fast. This wins easily for white. So rook b4 was played, trying to at least delay our advance, but rook is invading on the 7th row, cutting the king off. And in this kind of helpless position, black resigned. Why did they resign? Because, let's see some example. Maybe they could play g5. Of course, we never take this pawn, because we want to keep our, this is like a gold asset for us. We want to keep them together. We don't want to have only one passer. Connectors, are our treasure for us. So we don't take this g5 pawn. We go here. If g4, then we can grab this pawn, for example. Okay, if rook a4, just d6, and these pawns are rolling, combined with some mate threats, we're easily winning here. All right, let's see the next example. Here it's the game Smyslov-Stein, 1969, and we have a opposite color bishop. So the presence of opposite colored bishops often saves the defender, as we know, even if he is like pawn down, like in such a situation. But here, surprisingly, black is suffering from a bad structure. His queenside pawns are effectively stopped, and white doesn't have the same problem on opposite flank, on the king side. Here, for example, imagine if this c6 pawn was here. So that would be a draw easily, I think, for black. But this pawn is kind of useless on c6 at the moment. So white played g4, and Smyslov opts for the only kind of plan that can threaten black, the creation of connected pass pawns on the e and f files. He wants to create these two passers. So if king g5, that's not so great. If you try to create the passers this way, black could stop us and block us, like this. Typical in the opposite colored bishop endgames. He blocked our pawns, and it's a draw. So we have to advance carefully to create connectors. g4 was the right move. hg was played. If bishop d1, then we capture ourselves here, and mission accomplished. We created connected pass pawns. Then we roll them slowly. hg. And what do you think we should capture with the f pawn or the king? King capture is the right idea. fg is less promising. Why? Because we kind of split the pawns. We don't keep our connectors together, potential connectors. Here, black has good chances to make a draw. h5, takes, bishop f3, e5, bishop e4, with good drawing chances. Pawns are not too far away from each other, so combined with the king and bishop, black can hold this probably. So that's why king takes g4 was played. And now we see the idea. It's kind of simple. We want to change the rest of these pawns, and we will have connectors. So that's exactly how white is playing. King f4, so the next part of the plan is to push h5. But first, white just improves the bishop a bit. No need to rush. Black has absolutely no counterplay. So we just improve bit by bit. Especially in such position, you can just mess around a bit. Psychologically, it's very hard for opponent. And from here, already bishop can control king side. And even, as we see, we can even sacrifice that pawn if needed. This h pawn, just to create the passer. So if king d7, h5 can be already sacrificed. We have a bishop close by, so this lone pawn means nothing. Our connectors is what matters here. For example, here the variation was given as a winning for white, f5, yeah, and the pawns roll through. So king f6 was played instead. White just maneuvered the bishop a bit. King e6, if king stays there, he's getting checked, and kind of similar fashion, we sacrifice the h pawn and go f4. In the game, very similar thing happened. h5, yeah, finally the connected passed pawns are created. So yeah, in the opposite color bishops, that's usually the procedure. Yeah, pawn value is super important. Yeah, we don't care about lone pawns if they can be stopped by the bishop. We care about connected passers. And actually in the game after bishop g3, black even resigned, yeah, because these were like at that time elite players in the world. Black knew that he was lost, but of course we want to know how white wins the rest of the game, so let's check some variations. Bishop c2, well, white can advance like this: f5, king f4, e5, and then bishop b3 and king g5 with e6 to come, and we win easily. But I wanted to mention an important thing. Imagine only these pawns are left on the board. Then in that theoretical endgame, black could actually make a draw by doing this maneuver, bishop to d7, but here he cannot even get there, and kind of sacrificing then the bishop for 2 pawns. Yeah, this is well known if you study how to defend it against 2 connectors in purely theoretical situation. So, but here of course we have way more pawns, so that doesn't work. So just wanted to mention this. All right, let's move on to the next one. Here we have a game, Bauer-Korneev 2006. Well, what do you think about this position? White is better here, mainly thanks to his bishop pair, an asset which tends to become even more powerful as the position opens up and game goes on. And notice that slide square bishop is no match for black. He also kind of stops any of these ideas. So now kind of white found a clever way of improving his central pawn majority. So what do you think white should do here? What would be your first move? In the game, g4, excellent move was played, clearing the way for the e pawn. White wants to kind of exchange the pawns and create connectors. So if you went e4, this is not so great, because first, it drops this pawn. Even if you win it back, black has good counterplay here. So g4, of course, to try and create one step closer to connected passers. fg was played. Maybe knight e7 is more stubborn, though after king advances, it's not easy to suggest the plan for black, while white can kind of think about this e4 move at any moment. So, but of course, probably this was better than in the game, because this just allows white to easily go on with his plan to create these connectors. g5 was played, bishop e4. Now if we take this pawn, not good, yeah? We split our pawns, so this would be a nice blockade for black. So of course we keep them together. Bishop e4 hits the knight, and what do we do next? We advance them, f5. Strong idea now is incoming, maybe you can see it. Bishop d5 is the idea, and then roll the pawn forward. Supported with the bishop pair, these will be unstoppable. So knight f7, bishop d5 pin, and what would you play here? Here can even exchange the knight, eliminating the idea of any blockade on e5. So king f7, king f2, g6. Of course we don't take, we keep our connected passers together, and the rest is kind of easy, for such a strong player as white. a6, black tried to advance on the other flank, but that doesn't help. The connectors win in this case. e5, b4, e6, tempo move. Bishop drop back, g5 is hanging. Bishop e5. Yeah, if king f6, what would you play? Tactics, even in the endgame. Bishop g5, and we go through. Bishop e5 was played, but that drops the pawn. f6, even giving this pawn away, but white c until the end. King e4, b3, king f5. White is going to checkmate black, yeah, and after this move, nice e7 checkmate is unavoidable. So that was a very nice game by white, by Grandmaster Bauer. Here we are moving on to a famous and very old study to kind of compare how connected passers do against protected pass pawns. So sometimes they can beat them. I mean, connectors can beat the protected passer. Well, most of the times, if they're two away from each other, then it's a draw, because white is also like tied to this pawn. Should remain in the square. So let's see the study. It's even from 1851 by Horwitz. So yeah, we have a typical situation of two connected pass pawns. The draw would appear like to be inescapable, since white king, as I mentioned, is tied to the square. But in fact, white can sometimes leave the square in the end to help his pawn's queen, or mate his opponent, yeah? That's the whole idea of this example. So, but first white needs to advance these two connectors as far as possible with the help of the king, and then we'll see what happens. So king d4, king g4, and connectors protect themselves and advance. So already making some little progress. King h5, king e3. Yeah, king can hang around here. Yeah, the square is where he can hang around in this box, supporting the connectors, yeah, on the G and H files. So no problem here. King g4. Black tries to kind of stop us. We do a little triangulation, yeah, or shouldering, and we are still in the square of the c pawn. King h6, g4. Pawns get rolling again. King g6, h5. King h6. Yeah, king is kind of triangulating a bit to get the tempo, to control, to get back to f4. Yeah, to support the pawns, and this triangulation really helped us. Yeah, important weapon to have. King h7, and now g5 again. Yeah, we roll forward. And now critical moment arrives here. What to play now? Think about it. Try to predict, yeah, how we're gonna leave the square with the white king. The correct move is g6. If h6, that would be a mistake, because we are not in time to kind of get out of the square. Yeah, let's say here we might even, I don't know, lose this. Let's say, yeah, I'm just kind of improvising here. Well, we queen together, yeah, so this is draw. g6 is the right idea. King f6, king e4. Yeah, we again kind of shuffle around for a bit. King f3, king x6, king f4. Finally, we're gaining a tempo. And this is the critical moment. How to win with white. White has strengthened his position to the utmost, and it's time for decisive advance. King g5. And that's how connectors can sometimes beat the protected passer. c3, h6, king g8. Yeah, and because our pawns were so far advanced, we either go for mate, or we could have, I think, even played, no, we couldn't. If g7, we're not in time, yeah, the queen. So h7, all with tempos, but we mate in the end, like this, yeah. They even promote first, but it doesn't matter because we're checkmating. So this was an interesting and very old example, yeah, connectors versus protected passer. Hope you enjoyed. Let's move on to the next one. Here is a famous example. I very much enjoyed this from the Chessmood platform. I highly recommend especially their endgame courses under 2000 level. Really good courses from there. So here black can, this was I think even from their coach Grandmaster Grigoryan game. I didn't find this in the database, so maybe it was just an old game. G5 was played first move. Black is an exchange down when you see it, yeah, in this position. What's happening here? We have 2 pawns for exchange, so that's kind of cool. But by sacrificing the pawn, black is creating 2 connectors. And these connectors become monsters, basically. They are kind of unstoppable, supported by our rook and bishop. So G5 was an excellent first move. Yeah, try not to play this, then you lose the opportunity to create connectors, and white can hold against one passer. And rook f5, in order to play G5 next move, is not really working because white can stop this. So G4, excellent sacrifice, and E5, rolling the pawns. Okay, those pawns started to roll. E4, rook E1, E3, king C1, and here a good move was played. Rook F2, already using the connected passers, some kind of outpost, and of course white cannot take, yeah, because we win, we promote there. So rook G4 was played. Now D3, important move. Why is that? If they take on E3, do you see how we win? D2, C2, bishop A4, queening. So rook D4 was played instead, king E5, rook is hit. White is desperately trying, yeah, to activate the rooks and hold with them, but that's not good enough, yeah, against these connectors. But now important move had to be played in order to win the game. D2 doesn't work. Maybe you can see why. White can actually use the use the pin, yeah, and take this pawn. And if we take here, we even lose the game, yeah, we lose the rook. So rook f1 should be played, but white is holding like this. Yeah, very crazy position. Pawn is still pinned, and they will move the rook out, and we lost one of the connectors. So king e4 was played, supporting the pawns, and finally we advance. c2, bishop a4, king c3 has to be played. Yeah, if king b2, then we already can queen and win the rest. The following endgame with, well, we're queening with check, yeah. What am I talking about? Yeah, so king has to go to c3, and then black just promoted to a knight, because it's kind of checkmate situation. Yeah, if king c4, there is a funny checkmate like this. So very cute under promotion. And rook d took d1, but now you can see, yeah, why did black did this? They play rook c2 and it's checkmate. So I thought very kind of, yeah, you can find this game in their site. Just one of the kind of the strongest impression I had when I was searching for material about connectors. Yeah, how powerful are they? Even exchange down, yeah, and you can use this idea in your own games by being exchanged down and having these connectors. So very important kind of game example to learn from. All right, and finally we go to the homework assignment. This position is for black, and the question is how to play here. Yeah, we have some sort of rook endgame. What do you think we should do with black? So the next lesson will be also about connected pass pawns. I want to show you more model games, like more examples, so you really understand this is a very important theme. The connectors happen a lot in practical games. So thanks for watching. See you next time.